Okay, I made this video like 3 times. So, and I had just had a meeting, department meeting, so I don't remember where I was even at. So let's see if we can get through this. This is about, I'm just going to call it permissions. It's file management, blah, 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 owners and groups and all that. The main thing, I'm just going to say key in on this image right here. This is really what you want to take away from it for everyday use. The other stuff are specifics and special situations that where you will want to know they exist so you can look up how to do them. That's what I do. But you want to be familiar with this paradigm right here. So every file in your system has these 3 modes. I guess that's what they're called. I don't call them mode in my head, but I call them permissions. So you've got user, group, and other. Every file, and so let's look at this. Let me try to do this systematically for a change. First of all, who am I? It's a command you can type. That tells you who you are currently logged in as. Who. Anyway, the use of preposition would be whom, but it's as, so who. Anyway, who am I? Tells you who you are at the moment, according to the Linux. And then you are also in probably one or more groups. I don't think you can be in none. And on this particular computer, Linux installation, there's an admin user group, there's a root group, sudo group, and a vbox sf. It's probably a VirtualBox thing. Maybe for like the copying and pasting between the host and I don't know actually what it is, but it's not important. You'll be in groups like that are cryptic to you if you on your own installation sometimes, or especially if you're somewhere else and so you got a real administrator running a big enterprise, right? Like Pellissippi's PS11 probably has some weird groups. I should probably bring that up and show some examples. It'd probably be more instructive. I'm going to pause and do that actually. Hold on. So this is me logged into PS11. It's a Linux box you use in some of your classes, like 1010. You use this at Pellissippi. So there's the uname for it. I think I've shown uname before, so it shows you like the host name and it shows you what operating system, in this case Linux, and the current kernel edition or whatever. So one of the things I didn't like about my example with that virtual machine was that some of the examples weren't so instructive. This is more like this is a real world example right here. So first of all, let's see, who am I? I'm CJ Nicholson. That's the user that I am. Might be cut off a little bit here. This is a big font because I'm over 40, so you'll need reading glasses one day too. What groups am I in though? Here's the other command. So I'm only in one group, so it's not that instructive actually. Kind of thought I might be in an instructors group for 1010 with like Cindy Arnold and all that. But anyway, if you do a long listing, you can see, I'll just use this one as an example. These are all directories and files and such, and you can see the directories on the far left side. So these these are the permissions. These are the permissions or modes, whatever. The D means directory, so that's what that means for those. L is a link of some sort. Links usually have this scheme where everything's just everything's on. But anyway, so what fibs.py is telling me is that both me as a user and my group, which is also called name CJ Nicholson, but it's a group. So yeah, I'll actually break this down. Let's go back to what we were talking about before. It's a little bit jumbled. I'm not going to start over though. So going back to this, you've got the user, which is who you're logged in as. Then the group, each file is owned in quotes by a group or belongs to a group. And then there's the other category. Other is telling you what everybody else in the world. It used to be called world permissions. That's how I learned it. Other makes more sense in a way because it means other people who are users on the system. So there's going to be you, and everybody else is not you. There are going to be the groups you're in. So you'll be in groups with maybe other users, depending on which group it is. But everybody else that has a username on there who's not in your group's not in the group. That's a tautology, I know, but right, there's like there's the users, there's the groups you're in. Let's say there's just one group, and maybe not everybody's in it. So then there would be everybody else. That would be the other. The other also comes into play for like things like web servers. Anyway, so it's 3 modes per 3 permissions per mode, I guess is how you would say it. So the user, the R means read, it means you can open it up and read it, look at it. W means write, so that means you can change it, you can save it. You can save it with different content. And execute, the X means execute, which means that if it's a binary, it's a file that's basically a program, you can make it to where you can, the X permission allows the system to run it, to execute it in memory. You can have a binary that's a program, but if it doesn't have execute permissions, it won't be able to run until it does. So the X here is saying the user can launch it as a program. The X here is saying any member of the group that this file belongs to can launch it as a program. And if you have X here, which is very rare, it means anybody on the machine can run it. Well, I say very rare. It's very rare for like programs that you create. Not rare in the case of directories, especially for web servers. Then you probably have execute for that. And we'll talk more about directories and execution permission in a bit. But anyway, that's how it's all divided up. That's the important thing to get, is how it's divided up and what each one of these letters means. So let's look at a real world example again back at here. What this is telling me is that fibs.py, it's a Python program is what the extension's telling me, but that's not really important right now. It's saying that the user, me, can read and write it. The group can read and write it, and then everybody else can just read it. So anybody else in the system, if they've got permission to the directory it's in to read and execute technically too, then they can come and read this by just navigating to my home area and reading it. It's not executable, oddly. So I actually haven't tried this in a while. This is where I get in trouble probably, but fibs.py. Yeah. Permission denied. Permission to do what's denied? Permission to run it. You would run programs like this by using Python. So then that would run it. And that's doing Fibonacci numbers. Anyway, I had to break out of it. So that's one example, going back to the Oracle VM that we've been using. So you can see an example there. Here we go. I don't want to start xterm. ls-l. This is going to show you everything in this directory, which there is one file called my file that I created earlier, and it's got read, write, and execute permissions for me as the person who created it. It has read permissions for the group, and it has read permissions for others. So again, it's user, group, and other, also known as world. The owner of this file is admin user. That's who I am right now. And it's in the root group. I put it in the root group earlier. Let me show you how I did that. A lot of these things you want to use sudo for. Depends on the permissions that you got set. But I want to make sure this works. I'm going to do sudo, and I'm going to change the owner to admin. No, not the owner. The group. So chgrp, change group, of this file to admin user, which is a group. It's also a user, but basically I get my own group is what that means. And I'm going to change that to admin user for my file. And then because I did sudo, I have to put in my password, which I have to remember what it is actually for this virtual machine. I think I mistyped it. Hold on. Okay, one more time. Probably heard me do it slower. Okay, so admin user is now the group. So that's how you change the group. And what are groups used for? So just imagine a scenario where like you're accountants somewhere, working somewhere, and there's other people too, project managers or something, whatever. The accountants need to see certain specific files that nobody else needs to see. So you create a group for accountants, and you put that file in the accountants group. and then you give permissions for that to read. Probably, typically, you would have read permissions for the accountants group for all the people who are in the file would be owned or belong to the accountants group, and all the users in the accountants group could read it, including the person who created it, who's the actual owner. That first name here, he could maybe also write it and execute. So the scenario would be like, here's my report, and they're like, you got a typo, so you have write permissions, you go and change the file, but they can't change it for you. That's the kind of scenario that groups are for. There's more to it than that, like especially for systems administration stuff, and services that are running on your computer might be in their own weird groups because they need to be. But like the scenario it comes from is like that kind of enterprise model in the world where like certain groups of people have certain tasks that are in common. Probably about to get some dog barking. So I think I'm actually going to stop right here because this is a good video and let the dogs finish barking. I mean, it's good enough for where it is, and I'll continue in another video.